Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention, please. Good evening and welcome. My name is Steve Smith. I serve as Chief of Staff for the Fulton County School District. We are delighted that you're here. First of all, I would like to say welcome to the Fulton County School District, and most specifically, welcome to Banneker High School, home of the mighty Trojans. Duke is saying yes. Yes. We're delighted to have you out for really what is the first of our two safety summits that we'll have this week. We, as you well know, take safety and security as our #1 priority, and tonight is our chance to engage with you. We'll have the opportunity, and we'll have a format tonight that you will appreciate. Tonight, our format will involve two phases. The first phase will be our presentation by our Fulton County Schools plan, our safety plan, and our community, along with some of our cities and municipalities. The second portion of our night this evening will involve small groups that will be facilitated, and we'll direct you to those rooms shortly. If you'll refer to the handout, a number of you will either have handouts in your seat or you received them as you came in. In the upper right-hand corner, you will see a number, and you are assigned to that room for the facilitation this evening. You will also have a card. You will have a card that looks like this. What we would like for you to do is, if you would please, to fill out that card at the end of the presentation, and then we will be collecting that information as we continue to strengthen our safety and security. You'll have the opportunity on that card to be able to ask questions that are follow-up questions. You'll have the opportunity to make comments as well, so please utilize those cards appropriately. Also tonight, we will make this information available on the safety page of our Fulton County Schools website. It will be available, so please check that out as well. And tonight, I also have the pleasure of introducing the board member from District 6. Ms. Kimberly Dove will represent our Board of Education tonight, so if you would please join me in welcoming District 6 Representative Ms. Kim Dove. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Terrific Tuesday and good evening. Thank you for coming out to such an important and timely topic. Our Board of Education is very engaged in the topic of safety and security for our students and our staff. And we know that you're concerned as well. In fact, we are so concerned that at our board retreat last week, we authorized the superintendent to increase the police force by 6 more officers. This gives us one of the largest school police forces in the state. We are confident that Dr. Rose and his staff are doing everything possible to keep our students safe, and we appreciate you being here to understand more about what we are doing to keep our children safe. And we will be able to listen to you later, much later, in a small group. I would like to introduce my fellow board members. Our board president, Bryant, please stand. And our board member, District 1, Katha Stewart. Also, I would like to introduce our mayors. Mayor Bodie from the city of Palmetto. Mayor Ingramham from the city of East Point. Finally, but not least, our Mayor Vince Williams from the city of Union City. Also, are there any other elected officials here tonight? If so, please stand to be recognized. Thank you. And now I would like to invite our superintendent, Dr. Jeff Rose, to the podium to share an overview with you for this evening. Dr. Rose.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? So I'll start by saying I know how important this evening, but more importantly, how important this topic is. In fact, it's been sad that we become desensitized to this, and as it happens over and over and over again. It's also interesting how recently something has shifted. So why is it that now we see this sense of urgency throughout our country, throughout our community? The good news is that it is here, and I think it's our job to embrace it. In some ways, I don't know if this is the last straw on the camel's back, but the bottom line is I do think that we have reached a boiling point, and I think it's really important that we take advantage of that anxiety. And I won't tell you, it is anxiety. I'm a parent. I have 2 kids, and that makes me nervous. And what makes me more nervous than that, believe it or not, is to think, as a superintendent responsible for 105 schools, what if that were to happen here? I mean, it truly creates this knot in my gut. It makes it difficult to sleep. Now, this is a community meeting, which I think is really important to recognize. If you were to look around the room, you're going to see there are some parents in here, there are some teachers in here. We have, obviously, public officials and leaders. We have some faith-based leaders. We also have, is that okay? And here we're talking about students. So the concept is we have people in this room that represent community here to talk about students, and that's really important for us to understand, because we do have this conversation. I often ask this question of whose job is it to educate kids? So in this situation, whose job is it to keep kids safe? So think about that. Whose job is that? Well, in some ways, we want to make sure that we recognize that's everyone's job. In fact, you're going to hear probably several times this evening that we are promoting families and students that if you see something, you have to say something. The amount of intel that we receive from our community and our students, without it, we would not be able to intervene. And we are often intervening behind the scenes to make sure that a threat, even if it is a false threat, is followed up on. So we actually have an app for that, a way for all of our community to download to provide some information for us, and so that will be talked about later this evening. Now, I will say this. Fulton County Schools takes this topic very seriously. If you were to look at the last 10 years of history, you would see dramatic increases. Is there something going on with this? You would see dramatic increases in not just our officers, but our resources focused on issues of safety. Now, you're going to hear more of those details, but the bottom line is we are not satisfied. You heard Ms. Dove describe just a recent increase. We're not going to be able to buy our way out of this, but we have been and will continue to look at ways to improve upon what we currently do. And that's actually going to be the discussion later this evening, to get some of your help and perspective on that. Now, I will end by telling you this. This is a very complex and complicated, almost nuanced challenge. There are lots of interesting ideas being thrown out relative to how we can keep our kids safe. And we need to pay attention to them, and we need to look to our experts. But this won't be just solved with one thing. There's not just one thing that we can do to not just provide real safety, but to actually help our kids feel safe. Because our kids, they don't just need to be safe, they need to feel safe. They cannot learn, they cannot reach their potential unless they do. And that's going to be really important, especially as it relates to heightened anxiety, incredible pressure that our kids feel. And there has to be a why relative to some of the mental challenges a lot of our kids are going through. And so this isn't just about security and safety. This is also about resources to support some of the mental health issues our students are struggling through. So once again, there is no silver bullet, but we do know that we are committed. We do know that we have made progress and we have more to go. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand over the microphone to our Executive Director of Safety and Security, Dr. Shannon Flannery.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Rose. I definitely appreciate the opportunity that has been provided. One thing that had really dawned on me as I was preparing some thoughts for today, as Dr. Rose mentioned, the Department of Safety and Security and Fulton County Schools in general over the years has really made some dramatic improvements in terms of safety and security, and I know that this last incident really impacted so many of us. But we had continued to study incidents throughout the country prior to this, and we wanted to be very, very proactive. But what dawned on me was that as we're talking and we're collaborating with our safety officials and school district officials, it dawned on us that there's a great possibility that our communities and our stakeholders have not been totally immersed in the level of safety provisions that we have here in Fulton County Schools. So this is a great opportunity to just share that information, and some of it we may or you may have taken for granted as it becomes a part of your daily lives, but we just want to talk about that for a second. Fulton County Schools Department of Safety and Security is so very, very grateful for the commitment of our Board of Education. As Dr. Rose mentioned, we have been so gracious to receive an increase in our allocations for school police. But outside of the police department, and we have a total of 69 officers that are sworn officers in the Fulton County Schools Police Department, but even outside of the sworn police positions, we do have supplemental security support here within our district. Our campus security associates, who are a very critical part of our safety and security team here in Fulton County Schools. We have an additional 34 personnel who are assigned throughout our district. And many of you, those who are in law enforcement, understand how important it is not just to ensure that we have bodies, but adequate training is so critical. So I wanted to take the opportunity to just share that, as we have been fielding so many calls from parents who have just kind of been inquiring, what kind of training do your police officers get? And I wanted to just kind of shed light on that. The Georgia Post Council does require officers have a minimum of 20 hours per year, and every law enforcement officer knows that, but I can tell you that on average our officers do engage in substantially more training with specifics on the active shooter scenario. That's the worst possible scenario, but we have been training on that for a number of years, not just with our police officers or our law enforcement professionals, but in 2016, we started engaging our school staff in the active shooter response protocol. As a result of the most recent events, we went back on February 22nd and ensured that even though we train annually on all of our protocols, we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to retrain for obvious reasons. The things that I will share with you in addition to that is last summer we had our very first district-wide training for all of our campus security associates to make sure that they understood their roles at the local schools collectively, because these persons, the non-sworn persons, as with our officers, bring so much value to the organization. It was a great experience for them. We were very fortunate in that we were able to engage the National Association of School Resource Officers in providing non-law enforcement training for non-sworn security personnel. As you may or may not be aware, all of our schools for years have had very, very comprehensive safety plans within the schools. Most recently, we had the opportunity to study best practices throughout the country and make some adjustments in those plans that better align them with national standards. So all of our schools have now gone through the training where the emergency drills and emergency protocols were very prescriptive in terms of when those protocols and drills would occur. We never wanted our emergency drills and protocols to be an issue of compliance where we do these things because we have to. Just like our partners on the academic side, we practice because we want to get better at it, and it's the same with our emergency protocols. When these drills, which are categorized in 4 broad categories, are in fact practiced, a requirement is that it has to be uploaded in our Fulton Schools emergency portal. And if they are building evacuation drills, such as an example that would be utilized in a bomb drill or a fire drill, formerly referred to as, that information has to be uploaded into the state portal. So we have documented evidence that these things are actually occurring. Dr. Rose mentioned the technological resources that we're also utilizing to assist us in our safety measures. Mass communications for emergency notifications is a very, very big part of that. We are in the first phase of testing of a new mass emergency notification system for employees that will take the traditional flip charts, put them in the palm of the hands of our staff and other employees, and allows two-way communication from central office down to the schools and vice versa. It also infuses the emergency checklist on any devices that we issue here in Fulton County Schools. Through the competitive bid process, the vendor that was selected by Fulton County Schools was Crisis Go. So I will share with you, this initiative was not the result of any recent occurrence. This initiative was a result of assessing our needs and actually started about a year ago. We are anticipating, if testing goes well with this system, we will roll this out to all of our school leaders primarily no later than fall of this year, with subsequent rollout to the local schools. Dr. Rose also mentioned, and I'm not sure if he did, excuse me, but you know, collecting information for us is very, very critical, and I've actually worked with a number of community members who have questions, and obviously so. Why don't we have metal detectors? I think there was a news story recently that talked about weapons inside of the schools, and you know, schools are the mirrors of the societies. So what I will share with you is that if schools are truly a mirror of society, that means that anything that happens in society, we cannot say that it would not happen in schools. However, I'm very, very just elated that our students have responded to us in creating a culture that says we want to take control. We want our schools to be safe. So we have provided electronic mechanisms for our students, extended community members, and others to provide us information. We use an extension of our school messenger system known as Quick Tips. Embedded within the Fulton Schools app, Quick Tip allows all community members, anyone who wants to provide us with information, it allows them a mechanism to share that. And they can, if they so choose, remain totally anonymous. And I can tell you this app has been a great addition to our processes here in Fulton County Schools, as we know that most things that happen in schools all over the country, the measures in which safety personnel go about to find this information, it is normally the result of someone telling us. And again, with technological tools such as this, it gives us the opportunity to receive this information under the umbrella of anonymity. I want to talk just a couple of minutes about capital investments, and we're so thankful to all the taxpayers of Fulton County who so graciously, through the 1-cent sales tax, decided that they were going to fund this. As you can see, these beautiful facilities here in Fulton County Schools, and I was just having a conversation with my boss, Mr. Burke, a little while ago prior to this meeting, and as I looked around and as I trained all over the country, I said, you know, Fulton County Schools has some of the greatest, the nicest facilities anywhere that I have seen. In addition to that, I want to bring to your attention just a couple of things that I'm sure that you are aware of, but I will remind you, with the SPLOST funding, we were also able to fund additional safety mechanisms in every school in Fulton County Schools. You know, upon entry in any Fulton County Schools, we do have front entry controls. This simply means that someone wishing to gain entry in our school under normal circumstances would come in, mash the button, and the receptionist would actually query or have a clear way to identify Number one, who is coming into the building, and number two, the purpose for being there. So this was one of the safety mechanisms that has been funded in the past years and will continue to be funded through capital investments through SPLOST. In addition to that, we want to continue to encourage all community members to be involved in the educational processes and support us as community partners as well as parents. But we also have an obligation to ensure that we know who we're allowing to come in contact with our children. So those of you who visit schools, those of you who serve as volunteers and chaperones, understand the process by which you come in, give us your driver's license, and we actually vet you and determine pretty much your purpose for being here to ensure that all of our students are in safe environments, and those who support us are actually persons that we know are qualified to be around our students. You may or may not be aware, right now Fulton County Schools has partnered with Avigilon surveillance systems, in which Avigilon is our vendor that we use to outfit our schools with the latest state-of-the-art technology in terms of video surveillance. That is a process, and I can tell you that all of our high schools by the end of the summer will be updated with this new technology. This technology is so sophisticated with the artificial intelligence that pretty much it can tag any person, determine the way that that person walks, and determine where in our building that person was. The thing that I wanted to share with you additionally is that over the past year or so, we actually did sample one municipality that had the systems, the initial rollout of the systems. It was with the system of, the city of Sandy Springs, and we did partner with them as a pilot to give them access to our cameras in the schools in that area that had the Avigilon system, and it appears to be very, very successful. So we are, over the next year or so, going to continue to roll out this partnership and the ability of local municipalities. Unlike many of our school districts that have one city, Fulton County School District actually stretches through 13 municipalities. It would be easy to just, I wish we could just flip the lever and everybody has access to it, but there are legal parameters that we have to make sure that they are in place. So we're hoping to establish these partnerships. The next online for access to our Avigilon camera system will be Fulton County 911, Johns Creek, and Alpharetta, excuse me. In addition to the surveillance system inside of the schools, SPLOST also funded state-of-the-art surveillance system on our district's buses. I know quite often we use this information for investigative purposes, and quite often we use this information for other purposes. So on all Fulton County buses, you also have state-of-the-art surveillance systems that are engaged there as well. You may have heard most recently, as a result of the one-penny sales tax, very soon you will see about 19 additional police vehicles that were funded through capital funding, SPLOST. This will allow our officers an opportunity to expand their mobility capabilities. As you know, every high school and every middle school in Fulton County Schools has an officer that is home based. Now, I will share with you, because I've heard the conversation that we don't have officers in elementary school. Sure, you have an officer that's assigned to the elementary school. Every school in Fulton County has an officer that's assigned there. What these vehicles do, it gives them the opportunity where these officers have a home base at a middle school or a high school. The additional vehicles give them an opportunity for patrol functions, and the expectation would be that the officer's presence at the elementary school will be just as common as their presence at the middle school or high school. So again, I want to thank all of our board members and especially our taxpayers for actually creating these opportunities with us through SPLOST funding. The final thing that I want to talk about is the emergency communications piece. Again, our officers are actually dispatched through Fulton County 911, and I share that for a particular reason. We go through 13 different municipalities, so if there is an issue with the new software that we are rolling into Crisis Go, it gives the option, if there's an issue at a school, to notify all parties in that particular building, but also it will notify first responders. I cannot tell you how important it is for the community collaboration piece, and our partners, our other law enforcement partners in all of our municipalities are a very, very intricate part of our operations. We maintain ongoing relationships with them. Our police department is commanded by Chief Mark Saborski. He was sworn into office in November. At this time, I am going to ask him to come forward, and I'm going to ask all of our community law enforcement partners, would you please come up here, please? And Chief Saborski is going to take an opportunity to talk about our collaboration with our local municipalities.
Thank you, Dr. Flannery. Everybody can squeeze in. Come on. Y'all make sure you get some good pictures of this. It's a great time to actually get a really good visual of what our collaboration actually looks like. It's one of the pieces of Fulton County Schools Police Department that I'm probably most proud of. And you can see that we've got a lot of different jurisdictions up here represented. These are our South County jurisdictions. I don't think we have anybody north of Sandy Springs, right? We've got Fulton County Police, we've got East Point, we've got College Park, we've got Palmetto, Union City. Who am I missing? We got APS. And we got Fairburn. I know, right? You can clap. It's okay. It's okay. East Point, right? And realistically, this is a really good picture, like I said, of how we have to get the job done. In Fulton County Schools Police Department, like I said, we're spread out over the whole length of Fulton County. We've got an enormous responsibility that we have within our police department, and it would not be possible without all these folks standing up here behind me. We're kind of putting them on the spot, I think. Some of them weren't expecting to come up here, but we put them all up here anyway. Because right here, represented behind me, we put out a call just within a couple of days to please have a representative from your department show up, okay? And this is what we got. Okay, and this goes back to say, this is what we do on a daily basis in Fulton County. I could talk about a lot of different points of things that we do as initiatives, you know, through our local partners and with the school police department in and of itself. But the reality is that we deal with these guys on a daily basis. Okay, there's not a time in Fulton County Schools that a day does not go by and one of our officers or investigators or command staff is not interfacing with somebody in a law enforcement community outside of our own four walls. Okay, and I think this is a great representation of that. I did want to point out a couple of different things. I want to invite our East Point Chief of Police up here. I saw an email that he sent not too long ago, and I want to kind of get him to highlight some of those things because he's got some really great things to say about what we do as an agency and what we do as agencies together. So,
yeah,
Chief Gardner.
Chief.
I got put on the spot, so everybody else is getting put on the spot.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the invite. One of the most important things that we can deal with today is how do we keep our students safe in Fulton County? And I want Fulton County to know that they're not on island by themselves. As you see, all of the departments that's represented here today, the most important thing to us is keeping our students safe in the jurisdictions in which we work. And my mayor always say, and I'm going to steal it from her today, teamwork makes the dream work. And since the Fulton County Police Department, school police department has been in existence, the city of East Point have always had a great working relationship and collaboration with their school administration as well as the officers. We talk to each other frequently. Just last week we had several threats at some of the schools in our city of East Point. And the first thing we did is we came together as a team. They're not a department by themselves, and we don't have a police department by ourselves. We join together. We have to be partners in this. That's the only kind of way that we're going to prevent the next incident. If we're working together, we will solve our problems in our schools as well as in our communities. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point that and just like we said, safety is nobody's responsibility other than all of our responsibility. There's only so many sets of police officer eyes that are out there, and you guys are the ones that are in the community. So it's incumbent upon everybody to actually take that responsibility in that safety piece. I'm often asked what the difference is between our department and some of the local municipality departments, and I just look down at my patch and I go, we all do the same job. The patch on my sleeve just tells me where the paycheck comes from. And I think that's a really important piece, that we can't do it, like I said, with ourselves. We've got to have reliance upon everybody in the community. I wanted to highlight a couple things. I'm going to put one of the lieutenants up here on the spot because he got put on the spot by his chief, who's actually at another community meeting this evening. Lieutenant Eisworth, would you step forward to the podium, please? Thank you. We've recently entered into an operational agreement with the City of Fairburn, and I want Lieutenant Eisworth to actually give a little brief overview about that and some of the things that they're doing in their community as well.
Lieutenant Eisworth, Fairburn PD, here on behalf of Chief Anthony Bazidlo. So when we're discussing partnerships, like Chief was saying, we recently were fortunate enough, thanks to Chief, to get 2 spots reserved for the SWAT certification that was held down in Coweta County. And we were able to send 2 of our Fairburn officers who, as of last week, were able to complete and are now certified. And based on a recently signed mutual aid of understanding, we are now incorporating and assisting Fulton County Schools SWAT team with our 2 officers. So you can see that the partnerships are building, even evident with all that showed up today. Things that Dr. Rose was discussing as far as making students feel safe or teachers safe, and what can we do, maybe even the citizens, community in itself, is in Fairburn, Chief Bazidlo, he's been reaching out to the community, reaching out to churches. He is teaching active shooter response, civilian response to active shooter scenarios at the churches. And it's been outside of Fairburn. So, and I'm sure many of the other agencies have been doing it as well. I know in a couple weeks he's going to be going down to Palmetto to assist with one of the churches down there. So it becomes more than just jurisdiction. It's the partnerships that go outside. And like it's been said many times already, if Fulton County Schools, if unfortunately something were to happen, we would be responding. No matter the distance, no matter the location, there will be a partnership and people will respond. So thank you.
Everybody got enough pictures? Because I know these guys are probably uncomfortable up here standing behind me, so I'm going to send them back to their seats. I've just got a few closing remarks. So I appreciate y'all. Come on up. Y'all can go ahead and take your seats, please. Thank you. Just as the point was brought up, effective partnerships between law enforcement jurisdictions are essential to public safety. And I think just by the representation that we had up here and the kind of words that were said and the things that we're doing as a law enforcement community make that a great example. I want to bring out a couple of different other things that we kind of do on a regular basis as well across the whole part of the county. We have regular multi-jurisdictional canine sweeps within the schools. We regularly do community outreach and education. We've done a lot of training, special operations training, especially active shooter and SWAT training. Actually, we're one of the few police agencies, school police agencies across the nation that has an active SWAT team. And we're very proud of that fact as well. Because we actually have a great cooperative relationship with all the metro area SWAT teams. In fact, many just in the North Georgia area in and of itself. We regularly facilitate training because we get requests all the time to have folks come into our schools just because we have a great school setting that they can work in a school environment. One of the most recent things that we got a chance to do was the Milton Center, the old Milton High School up in Alpharetta. We had probably about a dozen different agencies come in and actually conduct some training over the course of about 3 days, where we got to do some things that we don't normally get a chance to do in live settings, because this building was getting torn down and we actually got to break things, which was actually a whole lot of fun. And everybody got a really good training experience out of that. So, and like we said, you know, we rely on you. I think that's been brought out quite a bit and quite a few times. I've had the chance to talk to many community groups over the past couple weeks, especially since the incidents in Florida have taken place. And you know, like I said, we've kind of put the onus back on the whole community that we need your input and we value your input, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep you guys safe. And I appreciate your time. I'm not going to take up any more of it. And I would want to invite Steve Smith back to the podium to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Chief. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we've had a few other members who've joined us this evening. Earlier, I mentioned the principal of this wonderful school, and I did not give him the opportunity to stand and be recognized. But please know that Dr. Duke Bradley is the principal of Banneker High School. Please stand and be recognized. Of course, he does all of the great work by himself. I'm kidding. He has a wonderful team who is sitting behind him. Would you all please stand? The wonderful administrators from the Banneker High School. He has his entire assistant principals who are with him. Thank you all for being gracious hosts this evening. We move now from the physical safety that you all had the opportunity to see and experience, and we'd like to bring up an individual who is a wonderful leader for us. That individual is Dr. Christopher Matthews. Dr. Matthews is our Assistant Superintendent for Student Support, and in that role, he will share more with you because specifically he has responsibility for our counselors, our psychologists, and our wonderful care team as well. So at this time, to talk about the social and emotional, please welcome Dr. Christopher Matthews.
Good evening, and thanks to all who are in attendance again to hear about the many supports that we're providing. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this topic. It's very timely. We know that in the incidents we've read about and heard about, there was another component to many of them, and that's the mental health component. So I'm really excited to share some of the supports that we provide our students every day here in the Fulton County School System. So the supports that we provide kind of fall into 3 categories. So we've got some very good tools and training that we leverage. We have some very strong community mental health partnerships that we leverage. And then we have an excellent team of support personnel, which Mr. Smith referenced, our counselors, psychs, and social workers. So I'm going to talk about some of those specific supports. So one of the tools that we've leveraged over the last year is actually an initiative that one of our county commissioners, Bob Ellis, has led, both in North and South Fulton, and that's our text-to-tip pilot. And what that entails is it's actually a tip line, a text line, where kids that are in crisis, that may be experiencing some sort of social and emotional issue, can reach out and receive immediate support by a mental health professional that provides oversight on that line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it's been a very impactful strategy so far, and so we're studying it as a pilot in conjunction with his office, and we're hoping to expand it if it shows good effectiveness. Another couple of curriculums trainings that we do is the Youth Mental Health First Aid. So Youth Mental Health First Aid is a national adult education program, and what that does is it trains adults who work with kids to identify the signs of mental health needs and then teaches the process of how to refer kids to mental health services. So to date, we've trained over 600 people in the Fulton County School System, parents, community leaders, faith-based leaders, teachers on those identification processes and referral processes. And we continue that training with certified trainers in our district today. Another curriculum is our Think First, Stay Safe. That is a curriculum in every Fulton County elementary school. So that curriculum is taught to our kindergarten through 5th grade students, and it teaches them many aspects of personal safety and online safety. and it's taught in conjunction with our health curriculum. So it's important that we start early in teaching kids how to be safe and how to make good decisions, and that's one of the tools and curriculums that we utilize in our elementary schools. Then we also have our peak academies, and so for many of our students who experience behavioral difficulties and are either short-term suspended or long-term suspended, our Board of Education and our district has supported 3 different academies that we have in our system. One north, one central, and one south, and they're called peak academies, pursuing education and knowledge. And what those are educational along with social and emotional programming that's provided to those students while on those suspensions so that we can teach them about lessons learned from their experience, equip them with better social and behavioral skills so that they can transition back to their home school and be successful. And then there's a plethora of SEL programs, which we call social emotional learning programs that our schools implement. There's just a plethora of them out there, research and evidence-based, taught to kids every week to develop those social and emotional skills through the K-12 spectrum. So the second category was our critical community partnerships. So you probably know that the school system is not well resourced to provide mental health services to kids, and so we rely heavily on our mental health agencies and our community partners that work in that realm. And so I'm happy to say that through our APEX, what's called an APEX grant, we were able to secure 7 full-time mental health professionals in 7 of our schools this year, and we're applying for 8 more next year. In addition to already established mental health partners that provide mental health services on our campuses. So a couple of them, just to mention by name, are Summit Counseling Center, who provides a lot of services north, and our Odyssey Family Counseling Center, who provides a lot of those services on our campuses in south. So we can't do that work without those partners, and so we're just very grateful to them, and we look forward to creating more. The mental health needs of our students are vast, and it's going to take the larger community effort to address those. And then the last category is our excellent support providers. So we have a very talented group, and I've worked in several school systems, but I've been most impressed with our school counselors, our school psychologists, and our school social workers in the Fulton County school system. They are just uniquely qualified and uniquely trained to identify social and emotional issues that our students are experiencing and get them the help they need in a timely manner. They are also trained in one of the most important protocols on the topic that we're talking about, and that's called the Student Crisis Response Protocol. We developed that protocol about 5 years ago, and it's a protocol that's implemented for every student who exhibits some sign or intent to harm themselves or to harm someone else in a significant way. So the protocol entails meeting with the student, assessing their needs, meeting with their parents, guardians, and then referring them for the appropriate mental health evaluation so that they can get the help they need and return to school and be successful. So, and we also, and lastly, we have our Signs of Suicide curriculum, which is in our middle and high schools, and those folks are trained to implement that curriculum. It's a research-based prevention program, and it's had very good impacts in Fulton. So I'll leave you with, those are just some of the supports that we provide across the realm of social and emotional learning and mental health. But I'll leave you with something that Dr. Rose started off with, and that's the See Something, Say Something campaign. I just can't stress enough the need to equip our young people and equip our community with that strategy. You may have read in the news the situation up in Vermont where a high school student exemplified this perfectly. She saw something on Facebook. It alarmed her. It was about a former high school student's intent to go into a high school and do significant harm. She reached out to her high school guidance counselor the next morning and met with her. Within an hour, that student was arrested. He had very detailed plans and had just purchased weapons to do something catastrophic in that high school. So See Something, Say Something can have a very big impact on this issue if we all equip one another with that skill. And we talked about, and I won't reiterate too much, but our quick tip on our Fulton County Schools app is a way to say something. So teaching our young people, and that's what we're doing in our schools, and equipping them with that tool will help identify a student who may be in crisis early and prevent something really catastrophic from happening in our schools. So having said that, I will now turn the agenda back over to Steve Smith.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've had the opportunity now to hear quite a bit about our safety and security. And now we've reached the opportunity for specifically our community members and our parents to spend time individually in groups. So this is the point of the program whereby this card, you'll recall that we referred to this card earlier. A number of you have this card. Please at this time complete questions that you have and or comments for follow-up that you have. There are 2 questions based on the presentations that you've just heard. We will be able to respond as a district with regard to themes of questions. If we aren't able to answer specifically every question, please know that we will respond thematically to your questions that you submit. Now, specific instructions for this evening. If you see the upper right-hand corner of your agenda, you'll be able to determine your location. If not, you will be going to this area here and following, pardon me for pointing, Susan Hale, who is up top, she is waving her hands. That's the individual you will follow. She will direct you to the specific signage that will provide you individual classrooms for individual discussions. We know that a number of you will have questions that you will want to have followed up on. You will have questions and or comments for us as a school district, and we're just delighted again that you've come out. At this time, I'm looking to make sure that we've covered everything. I'm getting the nod that we have. All items have been covered, so at this time, if you will report where we indicated earlier, thank you again for joining us. Please go to your facilitated sessions at this time. Thank you and drive safely home.